Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another podcast episode of Insights by Outside X. Now, today we have with us Mr. Shantanu Paknikar. Sir has been part of our induction program for the 2023 and 28 batch and has interacted with our junior batch as well. Now, to give you a slight brief about Sir as well, because I have been looking at your LinkedIn for a very long time for this interview, Sir. Sir is a subject matter expert of digital transformation and digital innovation, which also happened to be the topic that you spoke about to our juniors as well, Sir. So he's also an alumni of the Indian Institute of Science and holds an MS in Internet Multimedia Systems and has held positions such as the Vice President, the Chief Technology Officer, Group CTO and CDO of companies such as Wipro as well as Happiest Minds. Now, Sir has written 140 articles on strategy and innovation, and as someone who is managing a team who's writing the content creation part as well, our total number of articles would be close to 200 and 250. So I wanted to get your insights over this amazing achievement of writing these amount of amazing articles as well, Sir. So as currently the current position that Sir holds as well, and that position has also interacted with some of my batchmates as interns in his organization. He is the CEO and lead consultant at InsiWi Solutions. So primarily, so please thank you for coming to the podcast, Sir.
Thank you so much. It's a privilege to be here.
Thank you, Sir. So I wanted to, before we get into the questions, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your interactions with the junior batch. So you just come from giving them a session on their introduction as well, Sir. Yeah. So could you please share insights about that?
Well, I guess at the outset, what I was most impressed with is the level of participation. I was extremely happy with not just the number of questions, but also with the quality of the questions from the students, extremely sharp. And I just wanted to wish them all the best in making sure that the questions keep continuing. Many times we focus a lot on the answers, right, and we forget to ask enough questions. And I think asking questions is an extremely important first step.
Right, sir. So even right now, while we were speaking to you before the podcast, you've mentioned that asking questions was a very important trait that you lay a lot of emphasis on. So, sir, in speaking about strictly your experience in the corporate field, how much emphasis do you think is asking the right questions and curiosity has on the overall career of a person?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've seen multiple scenarios play out in the corporate world. I've seen situations where people come in out of B school, for example, and sometimes there are people who ask a lot of questions, who are extremely inquisitive and curious, and there are some people who don't, who just don't ask questions. We also have environments which sometimes encourage questions and sometimes discourage them. Personally, I feel that it's extremely important to ask a lot of questions so that you can keep thinking and you can keep processing what you're learning, rapidly learning, as they say. And it's important to be in an environment, right? Look for environments, I would say, which encourage questions. If you're in an environment which discourages questions, I would recommend looking for alternatives or looking for different options. But asking questions, I think from a long-term perspective, is really, really critical. And I must say this, I feel over the last few years, as I've seen a lot happening over these last 10, 15, 20 years, I just feel that the quantity and the quality of the questions that I receive seems to have gone down.
Right, sir.
So a little concerned about that, and my message to everyone who's listening would be ask a lot of questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question. All questions are really, really important.
Right, so actually, that was a really important point that we wanted to stress upon as well, because even in our classes, whenever we follow the case methods or anything that is taught, a lot of our professors also ensure that they ask a lot of questions on their part and ask us to pose a lot of questions to them as well. So I think the portion of asking questions, like you emphasize as well, sir, has been very integral part of our learnings here as well, sir. So actually diving into what comes out of the product after we've learned a lot, I wanted to ask you about your experiences with the interns as well from our batch. Haifa, who's actually in our team, actually has interned with InsiWi as well, sir.
Right.
So I wanted to ask you about your experiences with the batch.
Yeah. Well, I was really happy with the involvement of the students. in the internship, and the topic of the internship was again innovation related, right? Because that's been my passion throughout my career. So the topic of the internship was market research on innovation in industry, where each of the students took a particular vertical. I had requested them to select a vertical, let's say manufacturing, which was, I believe, Haifa's vertical, and healthcare, health tech, financial services, and so on, and look at innovative companies, leading companies in that segment, and innovation research. How are those companies innovating, right? What differences are those companies making to their customers, and so on and so forth. Overall, the level of participation from all the 6 students was very high, and the quality of work was extremely good.
Right, so I feel like after hearing you talk about their internships as well, I would very much like to work in the organization as well. So pivoting back to one of the questions that I've actually directly lifted from your LinkedIn profile, because I was very taken aback by the amount of sheer quality information that I found there. So you mentioned that you have talked about the intersection of business, technology, design, humanities, and arts, driven in a digital transformation and innovation portion as well in your profile. So how do you think these 5 very diverse fields come together in a setup for any company or any venture?
Yeah, well, on a lighter note, a lot of people might say there's a lot of English in that, right? It's nice that you picked that up. These are things which I'm personally extremely passionate about. I'm a technologist by profession, and I come from a family of artists and academics. So our family background and values have been around things related with arts, culture, learning for the joy of learning, for example, not for a degree or for a position or for money, and so on and so forth. As I've been in this area of digital transformation, right, one of the things which I've seen is there's a lot of jargon, but if you try to go beyond the jargon, what's important is understanding that digital transformation, the word transformation comes from business transformation, and the word digital comes from technology and innovation, right? So it's business transformation through technology and digital innovation, which gets shortened to digital transformation. Now, when you think deeper, right, you obviously need to have a business focus there, because if you do not have a business focus, there is no digital transformation, right? And for a moment, we're not talking about society transformation and things like that, right? We are talking about the corporate context, so to say. So business is really important. Technology is important because technology is all around us, and there's a saying which I believe in, and I conduct sessions on this, called every business is a technology business, every business is a digital business. So you have banks today saying that we are not a bank, we are a technology company, and we happen to be in financial services. You'll have hospitals saying we are a technology company that happens to be in healthcare, and so on. So technology is everywhere, and that's the second piece of the puzzle. But that's not all. At the end of the day, design, right? Really, really important in the context of problem solving, because if you don't solve problems, right, there is no business left and there is no use of technology. So design from the perspective of problem solving, right? Design thinking is something which all of us are aware of, for example, right, as a problem solving technique. So that's where design fits in, with that focus on creative approaches to problem solving. And then the humanities and arts. My daughter has done humanities, 11th and 12th, and has just started on her BDes Bachelor of Design program, 4-year course. And my wife is a doctor. I am an electronics and telecommunications engineer and a master's from IISc. So when our daughter came to me and said that Mama, Papa, I'm not sure what I want to do, but I don't want to do engineering and I don't want to do medicine, I said high fives. And then when she said that I want to do humanities, I said another high fives. Because I believe that the next 15, 20, 30 years, with increasing automation, with so much of technology all around us, what's really going to make a difference is the arts, creative arts, performing arts, right, humanities, right? So just as an example, we talk about AI. One of the biggest problems in AI today and going forward is ethics, right? And AI ethics will be an area where people can build a career for themselves. Typically, these will be humanities professionals, right? And so on. So I just feel that there is so much happening, right, in these areas. That's the reason for that intersection that I talk about of business, technology, design, humanities, and the arts.
Right.
As I said, it's a lot of English, but it's something which I believe in, right? And something which I've tried to practice in my career.
Right. So, even in the conversations we had before, you'd asked us if there's a curriculum for arts as well in our in NALSAR.
That was the reason for the question.
Right, sir. Right, sir. And I realized that the importance of all of that came into perspective after you explained all of this to us as well, sir. So, there was a very qualitative and very information-packed answer that you gave, sir. So, in the moment of trying to unpack it as well, I wanted to ask you a little about more of your personal experiences that helped you shape your worldview and apply more of them into a corporate and a business segment as well. So any experience that you would like to highlight that actually helped shape your philosophy towards a corporate relation or maybe life in general that you have used a lot in the course of your career?
Yeah, well, that's a difficult question, and there've been so many. So off the top of my head, if I were to think, right, of something that was really, really life-changing, maybe it was before my corporate career, perhaps. I grew up as a school topper, and at the risk of boring you and the listeners, what's called as a state ranker in 10th standard, and missed a rank a little bit in 12th, and did reasonably well. Was a university topper in Goa, where I did my engineering from. But when I joined for my master's in IISc Bangalore, I was surrounded by people who were extremely smart. And when you're 19, 20 years old and when you're a topper all your life, you tend to be a little pompous and a little arrogant about your own intelligence and your own ability. And when you're surrounded by people who are genuinely smarter than you, then it tends to be a little bit of a culture shock. So it was difficult for me to cope up. I failed in a subject in IISc for the first time in my life. Right, I never failed in anything before. Anything I had tried, just struck gold. The best in anything, so to say. Right, but when I look back, I think some of those shockers, right, both culture shocks and otherwise, were the best experiences of my life, because in today's session on innovation with your colleagues, I spoke about failure being the most important teacher, and when you have some of that pompousness and arrogance knocked out of you, and when you understand the value of humility, right, and being reasonably level-headed, it can take you a long way. So yeah, so if I could think of a life-changing experience, right, maybe that would have been it. During the corporate world, there have been several others, minor ones, I would say, but I think that experience, right, and my time during the masters in IISc changed the way of thinking significantly.
Right, so and you are also speaking to someone who also has been through the same journey. I can understand, sir.
Sure.
I came into the college as AIR1, so the reason that a lot of this the slight portion of people expecting a lot from you, and that gets shattered as you come to college. I experienced that as well, sir.
Sure.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit about, because you've touched on AI as well and AI ethics as well.
Yes.
And how the future is also held firmly in the grasp of people who are also very creative. I wanted to ask you how a business such as a service business as well also is adaptable in a very agile format, wherein a lot of new technologies are coming in. We had AI coming in now, the previous wave of metaverse, and there's a lot of over the decades we've seen a lot of waves coming down.
Right.
So how does a business adapt well to all of these changes, and how do they separate the fad from the actual structural integrity that is there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think any especially technology, right? Any technology has what's called as a hype cycle. Right, and when we look at it, people have asked me, people not from the tech industry, my brother's not from the tech industry, my wife is not. So people outside the industry say, can you describe your technology industry in one word? I say jargon. Then they say another word, I say hype. So what happens is that there is a lot of hype, especially in the tech world, right? There's a lot of jargon. But what companies need to do and can do is try to anticipate what portion is really hype and what portion is actually going to make a business impact. So if you look at AI and automation, yes, there is a lot of hype out there, but there is a lot of real difference as well that's already happening and that's going to happen. Just as an example, every one of us knows copy paste, right? In terms of Control C, Control V. We don't need to do Control C, Control V anymore today. We can write a software robot to do all our Control C, Control V for us, and we don't need to be programmers for that, right? So that's reality. That's not hype. That's actually happening, and a lot of those applications are being built. A lot of those solutions are being built. So my recommendation and my thought is sift through the hype and reality. Carry out a lot of experiments to figure out what is hype and what will actually work in practice. Right. Experimentation is important because experimentation will show you if something is just hype and it's not really working, or hey, this is something real, it's actually working. Can we scale it out? Right? Can we build this into a product? Can we build this into a company? Can we spin it off? And so on and so forth. Right. So that's where I would recommend, right? Companies can move towards in terms of figuring out what portion of this can actually make a difference and what portion can be ignored as hype.
Right, so. And in the same segment as well, sir, we've seen InsiWi also being involved in a lot of different sectors, including BFSI, including healthcare, and has been increasing its services into a very broad variety of topics as well. So I wanted to ask you, sir, recently I've seen your most recent post as well about this, sir, on your LinkedIn profile. You mentioned that there is a pre-recorded content repository that you've created for the healthcare industry.
Right.
So I wanted to ask you about that specific product, sir, what the ideation was before it, how you came to the gap that was in the market, and what the product creation was like.
Sure. So we call it InsiWi, which is our healthcare content repository. And the ideation was very simple. So if I were to describe, in a simple way, the problem statement or the need as we understood it was that when we look at healthcare as an industry, healthcare, pharma, life sciences, right? There is digitization happening there, like in any other sector, right? And by digitization, one of the aspects of digitization is digital media. So if you're in healthcare, like in any other industry, you need to have a website today. You typically need to have a presence on YouTube, on LinkedIn, Facebook, Insta, and all the channels, right? As a business, you need to have those properties, as they say, and digital media presence, right? Really, really critical today for any business, including healthcare. Now, when you have the digital media, right? Digital media is about the content that gets hosted on those platforms rather than the delivery of the content itself, right? So the digital media, setting up a website today can be done in a day, right? But then what do you put on the website so that you keep attracting visitors? That's where the content comes in. So what we felt was that while healthcare companies, like any other industry, are on digital media, where will they source their content from, right? And we're talking about healthcare content, right? So you and I may be able to author an article on, say, for example, the latest features in the next iPhone, which is being released. But if you and I author an article on what are the best ways to treat migraine, then people who read it are in trouble, and so are we, right? So healthcare content needs to be authored, edited, proofread, validated by qualified professionals, right? Anyone cannot generate and produce healthcare content. So now the question is, for these healthcare companies who will produce that content, then they'll say that, okay, we'll ask our doctors to spend a portion of their time. I'm a hospital, I've got 20 doctors on my payroll. I'll ask them to spend a portion of their time writing blogs and articles. Do you really want to do that, or do you want the doctors to focus on patient interactions and spending more time in care, right? Then they'll say, okay, we want the doctors, right, and qualified people to spend more time in care. Okay, can we ask an agency to do this for us? So you go to your agency who handles your digital media. The agency says, we can put up a website for you, but we are not medical professionals. You can't ask us for the content, right? You have to get the content done from elsewhere. That's where we saw the gap. We saw the gap as in, the healthcare industry for their digital media needing ready to use, reliable, relevant content, authored, edited, proofread, and validated by medical professionals. My wife is a doctor. She's an MD who's been in content for most part of her career. She's authored more than 1,000 articles herself, edited more than 1,000 when she was working for an online magazine, an online medical journal. And we thought that this is a great opportunity for us to do something on our own. So that's how the idea of InsiWi was born,
Right.
where we said that we'll have our own content repository, and we'll be able to license out this content to healthcare companies. We can repurpose it, reformat it, make it available, and content of various types. Someone says I need 50 blogs a month. Someone else says I need 3 YouTube scripts a month. Someone else says I'm a pharma company, I need content for these brochures. Someone else says I've got writers with me, but I need a doctor to validate and proofread and edit that content and certify that it's good to go, and so on. That's the business model that we are looking at, and that was how the idea was born, and the type of work we are hoping to do.
Right, so I can this whole journey of you telling us from where you found the gap to all the way to plugging everything in from the people that can create it to what the possible downturns can be as well. I realize that this is a very eye-opening factor for me as well to ideate better in my future projects as well and for future ventures that we try to create.
Sure.
So also this thing that we have also been focusing on is a lot that the technology aspect is always present in all of the services that we're trying to produce.
Yes.
So sir, here I wanted to ask you a little bit about this general question, but in specific to your role with InsiWi as well. So the role of tech in innovation was something that I wanted to talk to you about beforehand. But in addition to that, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the challenges that it poses. Like you said, with even InsiWi, sir, the information that you're posting out has to be verified
Yes.
by professionals as well. So that would be specific to InsiWi itself. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the general challenges that you have been facing regarding the tech innovation portion that has been happening in InsiWi as well.
Yeah. Well, I guess if I look at it in a very general sense, not all innovation is tech innovation, right? We can have innovation, without tech. We can have process innovation, though technology is one of the biggest enablers, right, for innovation. So just at the outset, just to clarify, if I look at your question from an innovation perspective and the challenges being faced, the primary challenge or problem in driving innovation, in executing innovation, right, in creating innovative products is people. So the way people think, the mindsets, right? There's resistance to change. Innovation is about questioning the status quo. Innovation is about doing different things or doing things differently. Innovation is about disrupting. Innovation is about shaking the foundations. Human beings by nature don't like all that, right? All of us like to be in our comfort zone, right? No one likes why trouble till trouble troubles you, they say, right? But innovation is exactly about creating trouble. Innovation is about being a troublemaker, right? And I'm not discounting process innovation and incremental innovation and things like that, but when we look at innovation at scale, right, it is about it's about being crazy, it's about radical things, it's about creating new markets and so on and so forth. And I find there a lot of resistance to things like this from a mindset perspective. Interestingly, I find this resistance even in young people. I would have thought and assumed that it's the older people who will resist, right? But many times I find out that even the young people I speak with are hesitant and fearful of doing something differently or trying out new things. And I say, hey, I'm the 50-year-old, you're the 20-year-old, or have you got it wrong? Is it the other way around? Are you 50 and am I 20? So, I try to nudge and, make a little bit of, disrupt a few things right there. But yeah, the primary challenge that I've seen for innovation has been in terms of mindsets and people. Most other things can be handled. Right. And I do believe there is no problem which cannot be solved. It's just a matter of time. Some problems will take more time than others, right? But people are complex and people are complicated, and getting people, carrying people along, collaborative innovation, getting people to agree on funding innovation, all those things, very, very difficult.
Right. So even as you said, that a special focus must be maintained on the people. That becomes especially pronounced in small teams such as ours as well, where we're constantly same set of people working on a lot of projects. So I wanted to ask you, with a lot of experience that you've had in the industry as well with your career, I wanted to ask you a little bit about this one aspect that I have been looking very forward to. Is that what would your advice be to startup founders and entrepreneurs that are recently starting out their journey in this field? And since you mentioned that a lot of the portion has to be people facing, I wanted to ask you to add a little twist to the people facing portion as well.
All right. So connect your question with the people aspect.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. So my suggestion would be one. We start with humility, and what humility tells us is that while we might be or we might think of ourselves as the next Einstein or the next Steve Jobs on planet Earth, we may not be. Right. What that means is that going it alone and being a solo startup founder or entrepreneur is not going to be easy, right? More ways than one. So I would say look for co-founders. Anyone who has a startup idea or is looking to do something, right? Look for co-founders, people who you will be willing to spend at least a few years of your life with, right? At least a few years. We're not talking about a few days or weeks or months. Right, without biting each other's heads off and getting along reasonably well, if not becoming friends along the way. So the people aspect to startups and entrepreneurship would be in terms of the ability to figure out who are those 2 or 3 people who can be my co-founders, right, and who have the same wavelength as I do, who will back me, right, when I'm down, who will cover for me when I'm not able to, we all go through our ups and downs, right? So you want someone to be able to cover for you, you'll cover for someone else, right? It can be a lonely journey, right? Entrepreneurship, innovation, you're constantly swimming against the tide. You constantly have people, telling you with great authority how and why you're going to fail. So the only backup that you have is the immediate team around you, right? And that is where I would put the people twist. I would say, problem that you're trying to solve, technology that you're going to use, impact that you're going to create, all that important. But leave that aside and ask yourself, who am I going to innovate with? Who are going to be my startup founders or co-founders? Are they people I'll get along with for a significant portion of my life, if not the rest of my life?
That's right. So even I understand this portion as very heavily, so because over the course of the 3 years that we've been working over at Alsatex, we realized that a lot of people will come and go, but the co-founder team has to be extremely cohesive in their
close knit.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Because at the same time, while there'll be a lot of uncertainty outside, we have to ensure that the people that are at the core of it, working with everyone, have to be one cohesive unit wherein decision making with themselves is very
absolutely.
That's a free flowing idea as well. So.
Yeah, cover each other's backs.
Right, sir.
Right. That's the saying, right?
Right, sir. Right, sir.
So, really, really important.
Right, sir. So I wanted to emphasize again, coming back to the portion of tech, because we have also focused a lot on the part of tech being a disruptive innovator and also challenging the status quo. So the next lesson that we prepared for you was that, sir, we are arcing as tech as an acquiring force for impact. So one thing that we've mentioned as well, that BFSI sector is something that you targeted a lot. With the aspect of Bloomberg GPT coming in, where analysts can now go to the web and just access information readily. And we have had a lot of solutions over the tech network, where you said as well, so neobanks are coming up as well, where they're saying we're a tech product, but we're only in the banking segment as well. So in this same lineage, where do you think that the tech innovation and disruption will be in the next couple of years as the trajectory is going higher?
You're asking in the context of financial services?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
Well, again, financial services has been at the forefront of tech adoption, right? Right since, if you look back in computing history, Wall Street getting digitized back in the 90s, right? And on the trading floor, they would announce stock prices verbally and manually and so on. From there to tech-enabled stock prices being seen on the trader screens, right? So financial services, banking, all those areas have always been at the forefront of technology adoption. If I look ahead, right, in terms of what more could happen, and the disclaimer is some portion of this may already be happening. Lots of smart people. I make no claim to being among the smart people. I may not be very smart as well, So there are a lot of people who may already be doing such work, but just as an example, I think the breakthroughs in automation and AI, especially over these last few months, maybe over the last year or two, we are going to see a productivity jump, right? And while that may sound cliched, what I'm talking about is a productivity jump that could be as significant as it happened during the first industrial revolution, right? Where we are talking about productivity jumps of maybe three figure 100x times, right? So let's take an example in financial services. Let's say I'm a wealth manager, right? And as a wealth manager, my job definition in financial services is to handle the portfolio of high net worth individuals, right? Just a disclaimer, I don't have a wealth manager because I don't fall in that category. But let's say there are wealth managers who handle portfolios of high net worth individuals, right? Now, there's a human limitation to how many portfolios you can handle. You can handle maybe 20 portfolios at a time, right? With automation and AI, and with the ability, to do things like generation of an optimal portfolio being done automatically based on data and analytics and so on and so forth, right? One way of thinking is, hey, we can kick out the human portfolio manager and replace that person with a software robot. I don't subscribe to that view, right? I think human beings are irreplaceable by and large, especially on the creative side, right? But can the person who's handling 20 portfolios handle 200 portfolios or 2000 portfolios? Right? Possible. Can be done. As crazy as it might sound. And this is where I think, an example of where automation and AI could make a significant difference. Financial services is an example, it'll happen everywhere, but I think we are going to see significant improvements in productivity. And we're not talking here of incremental improvements. We are talking about radical improvements in productivity. We are talking about, a person in a finance and accounting team who processes, say, for example, X invoices a month, being able to process 100X invoices a month, right? And so on and so forth. So the sky is the limit. I would guess financial services will be the first to adopt, like they have always been. And there'll be use cases, there'll be startups, there'll be products which are already doing portions of what I'm saying as we speak.
Right, sir. So even recently, I was listening to a podcast in which Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, was present as well. So in the same thing that he mentioned was that the incremental change in productivity will be absolutely huge for AI.
Yeah.
And rather than replacing humans, they supercharge one person who can use AI with the highest portion.
Yeah. In one of the companies that we've worked, that I've worked in, we had a tagline for automation and AI, and the tagline was from human to superhuman. Right. So again, for whatever it's worth, it's something which can set that in the right context.
Right, sir.
What will AI and automation do?
Right, sir. There was the same thing that we found out as well, that AI won't replace you. A person using AI will. that was starting to make the rounds on LinkedIn as well, sir. So delving into the prospect of people who are as young as us and have to learn the entirety of new technologies that are coming in as well and have to be adept at everything, I wanted to pivot slightly into the portion of creating our own new curriculum at NALSAR. So if you were to create your own curriculum for strategy, for innovation as well, so what were the major portions would you bring from your experience, as would you want to suggest us to make in our experience?
Sure. So again, the disclaimer is that I may not be aware in detail of your current curriculum. Some of my thoughts may already be implemented or maybe in the process of being implemented.
Right, sir.
And what I would think of is a couple of things. One, of course, is a lot of MBA courses, I think, teach entrepreneurship, for example, and entrepreneurship and innovation and areas like that. I would think that a specialized course on innovation management, right? Innovation as a management discipline, as outlined first by Peter Drucker and then taken forward by a lot of people, and not necessarily coupling that with entrepreneurship, right, would be the first thought from my side. Innovation as a management discipline for any and every person, including the person who does not, for whatever reason, want to be an entrepreneur, right? So the recommendation is because I would suggest there's no need to think that only entrepreneurs need to be innovative. The person working on a 9-to-5 job in any company, including any clerical job and things like that, can and should be innovative, right? So innovation as a management discipline would be one. The other would be, I would, maybe it might sound a little crazy, but I would think that the importance for creativity, right, needs to be re-emphasized through formal courses in the fine arts, performing arts, and so on and so forth, rather than being hobbies which students are quote unquote allowed to do during their quote unquote spare time, right? So I would think that why can't a management student get credits for doing something in terms of maybe composing music, right? For example, why can't a management student get credits for trying out a new technique in painting and doing a course on that, right? And so on and so forth. So it's just thinking aloud, but these are some of the things that I would think of in terms of being a little different, or maybe being a little crazy, so to say.
Right. So
maybe frowned upon by conventional ways of thinking, but since you asked.
No, sir. That's absolutely. We've had this left brain, right brain paradox for a very long time, and we have been experimenting a lot with that as students in our own capacity here at NALSAR. So to bring it all together, I want to ask you one final question. Since you've interacted with some of us as well, and interacted with the junior batch that is coming, if someone were to start his 5-year journey here at NALSAR and would be to conclude at the very end and is trying to join the corporate world, what would your one piece of advice be to that 18-year-old who has just entered college to have a successful career?
Yeah. Well, my piece of advice would be a little controversial. And the piece of advice, since you're asking, would be, think 2 times on whether you want to join the corporate world. And what I mean by that is that, I would have thought that getting a management degree is one of the best ways to get trained on how to run a business.
Right.
If the aim of a management degree is in getting better at how to run a business, the best business to run is your own. If I look back, right, we were in a situation, and I don't want it to appear that I'm whining, but the India of the late 90s when I finished college is quite different from the India of 2023. And since I represent the previous generation, I can say with authority and confidence that by and large, there'll be some exceptions, but by and large, this generation, my generation, has done reasonably well, financially speaking, in the sense that if some of you or many of you go to your parents or to the previous generation and say that we want to start our own company straight out of college, right? We don't want to join the corporate world in a job. My guess is that a lot of parents will support it. In my personal case, if my daughter comes to me and says, Papa, I want to start a company after I finish my bachelor's or master's, I'll say another high five, right? And the reason being that, the cushion is there to experiment and to try out, something. And it gets more and more difficult to step out of the corporate world and do something on your own, with each passing year. So 1 year becomes 3, and 3 becomes 5, and 5 becomes 10, and it becomes incredibly difficult to leave a job and start a business. But the problem is that, we have maybe a 75 to 80% gap in terms of graduates being churned out from universities and jobs getting created. How can everyone aspire to go for a job that someone else has created? And very few people say that, I'm going to be the one creating jobs. We need more of you, right? The younger generation saying that, okay, there is some cushion. Our parents are okay with it. Why don't we try to build a company and create 3, 5, 10, 15 jobs? Disclaimer, I'm not saying that I've created a lot of jobs as such, but at least I've tried to employ myself. So there's one job I've created for myself rather than depending on someone else, right, for my employment. So as unconventional as it may sound, to your question on what would be the advice for people who want to join the corporate world, I would say, are you sure you want to join the corporate world? Do you want to start off your own business and your own company with 2 or 3 of your friends? Think about it.
Right, so that would be one of the very fundamental questions one would have to ask before even considering which path to take. I understand. So So we'll be wrapping this episode up because we've started the conversation from your time at InsiWi, how tech innovation and disruption happens, all the way to how AI and AI ethics will play a major role in the next decade, as well as concluding all of it with if we were to create a new curriculum as well. So I feel like this one whole conversation episode was very inspiring for me as well, because now that I realize that innovation plays a very big role in maybe your corporate world, maybe your startup as well as figuring out that people being the center of any major process is also a very important aspect as well. So I feel like we may start our own entrepreneurial journey very soon, thanks to you as well, sir. So I think we would now be wrapping the episode. I want to thank you so much for coming, sir.
Thank you.
And we'll be back with yet another inspiring speaker and yet another inspiring episode for you guys as well, to help you better carve out your journey going into college and coming out of college. Now, it may be a corporate venture or could maybe your own entrepreneurial journey. We'll be here to help you out and give you insights of whatever we could find from our time here at Interns of NALSAR. This is your host Ayush Nikam signing off. Thank you so much.
Thank you.